I'd like to start by thanking you for having me here today. It's a big zechut to be able to come all the way back to where I began my learning journey down the road in Lakewood Cheder. I was a Cheder boy, and it's good to be back here and to be able to speak to the Nashim Sidkaniyot across all the offices and all the places and all the locations of Future Care is really a special thing. I'd like to speak to you. I was asked actually to speak to you today about Shavuot and to prepare you for Shavuot. And I apologize if you don't understand my Sephardic Havara. I can shift back into the Ashki version if necessary, but I'm in the zone now for many, many years in the Sephardic pronunciation. So I apologize if it's a little bit difficult to understand. Don't be shy, raise your hand. Maybe they'll send in messages from the other offices and say, ask him to repeat it. You could do that as well, all right? One of the most challenging things about Yamim Tovim, the holidays that we are given by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, these days which are called times of communion, they're times of coming together with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the idea that's expressed in the Gemara numerous times is Dibra Torah Kilshon Bnei Adam. The Torah spoke in the language of humanity. And I think most times people misunderstand what that means. They think that it means that when the Pasuk says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu heard something, said something. I remember my daughter when she was a baby, was challenged in the car. I told her Hashem said, and she said, "Nuh-uh, Hashem can't say. He's not even a person." Right? So that idea that Hashem spoke, Hashem said, Hashem heard, Hashem was said, all these ideas, the Gemara explains, Dibra Torah kilshon bnei Adam. It was said, L'saber et ha'ozen, in order that you should be able to understand, so it gave you something that you could understand. Most people think that means that in order to be able to express what the Torah, what God wanted from us, what did we do? We spoke in a language that humans understand. But that's not really the omek of what it is that the Gemara is teaching us with that idea. When we say this concept, Dibra Torah kilshon bnei Adam, it means that we spoke in a language that we understand, that we relate to, that we connect with. And the idea is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu expressed the Torah in the language of human beings because that was its purpose. And I need you to understand what that means. On some level, the purpose of Torah was humanity. We think the opposite. We're batel to the Torah. The Torah is the important thing. We're unimportant. We have to do everything that we can for the Torah. That's not true. The Torah is a writing down of the soul of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Gemara says that the word that God said, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, Anochi stands for Ana Nafshit Katvit Yahavit. One of the most beautiful, romantic, fairy tale ways of explaining Anochi is that Hashem said when He gave us the Luchot, I wrote down my soul and I gave it to you. Anochi Nafshit Katvit Yahavit. I wrote my neshama down and I gave it to you in a book. That's what the Torah is. The soul of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem gave that to us. That's what it means when we say, Dibra lash Torah kilshon bnei Adam. Hashem wanted to give a piece of Himself to me and to you. And it's crazy. I think it's easier to understand when we all wore robes and lived in the desert, and prayed under the stars. But now that we're here at 2023, we're driving whichever cars we drive, shopping whatever stores we shop, where we're going to choose to eat breakfast or lunch or whatever, that Hashem should say, I want to give you a piece of me. I want you to connect with me. It sounds like such a foreign idea. So therefore, Dibra Torah kilshon bnei Adam. But was God never to create humanity? Would there have been a purpose in writing the Torah? No. It would only have been Hashem, and Hashem already knows His own soul. I want you to think about that concept for a minute. The Torah's purpose was for us. Now, it's true that it predated not only humanity, but creation, like the Gemara says, that the Torah was written, Taf Kuf Ayin Daled Dorot. It was written almost 1,000 generations before the world was created. But just because something was prepared in advance doesn't mean that it wasn't prepared for that thing, like we say, sof ma'aseh, machshava tchila, that which was created in the end was the original intention and the original thought. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu invites us on Shavuot, once upon a time, in the year 2448, 3,300 years ago, he says, come to me, be with me, connect with me. Hashem reiterates those words to Am Yisrael every single year on the same day, Shavuot haba alenu tova. It's going to happen in a few days. Now, what's a crazy thing is that the preparation that we put into anything will be the thing that comes in the end. If you didn't prepare for Yom Tov, what will your holiday meals look like? What will you have? You're going to grab whatever you can find in the fridge, throw it together. You'll have a nebuch, a hazit, dinner, lunch. It's going to be very sad. It's not going to be something you're looking forward to. The preparation of a thing is the thing. So therefore, if Shavuot is coming on Thursday, our wedding, some of you will remember clearly what it was like getting married. Every detail, the dress and the flowers and the color and the photographer. I like this one and not this one, and which ring and which and how and when, and this one's earlier and later, and what's it matching and who's going to be. The trillion details for your marriage to a basar vadam. How much preparation are you putting in to your marriage to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And what it will or won't be will depend on the preparation you put in. But in order to prepare, we have to know what we're supposed to do. And that's what I'm trying to convey today in the brief time that we have together. I want to quote to you some ideas that are sourced primarily from Rav Rosenblum, Rav Turk, the Rishonim, the Achronim, and some of them that come from my heart. And I want to share exactly what I think is what we need to be focusing on in this time. I'll never forget one of the moments that really struck me in explaining and expressing what a Yom Tov is to your family, to your children. Because ultimately, they get a lot of things in school, but what they get in school in no way compares to what they get at home. Allow me to explain what I mean. In London, I ran a program called Next, and the idea of the program was to take kids that are in 11th and 12th grade and expose them to top CEOs in Fortune 500 companies, in international firms in law and media and medicine, all different spectrums, whatever it might be, journalism. This was not to religious kids, not in a religious school, and along the way, we obviously also taught them Torah, okay? That was my primary goal. But the kids would fight to get on this program because it was very prestigious, and they got chances that people could not dream of getting without us. To meet the CEO of Thomson Reuters, to meet senior partners in Herbert Smith Freehills, and working for Sony Music, all these different things. The senior cardiologist to the royal family spoke to our group, and oftentimes it was remarkable. Kids that had spent so much time with their guidance counselors figuring out what they wanted to do in university, on the spot took out their phones, called their parents, and changed their career plans. I just want to relate one thing that happened when we started the program. I went to the school and I said, we're prepared to run this program for you for free because we think it will enhance the Torah and Judaism, Jewish connection for these kids, but there's one condition. I have to take the kids to the office. The principal of the school said, are you crazy? You have to take them from school into town? It's far, they're going to lose a period and the lunch hour, it's going to be disruptive, you can't do that. I said, listen, the only way I'm doing this is that says, suit up. And the kids would come to school on that day in a suit and tie. And if they were the girls, they would come to school in business clothing, as opposed to either a school uniform or whatever they would wear casually. And I explained to the principal that you can't talk to a kid in school about non-school things because they have school head. It's something they're preparing for. It's like a test. The same way you forget after you cram, something you learn in school is not the same as something you learn in the world for life. What you teach your children at home, al titosh torat imecha, in many ways is far more powerful than the most profound ideas that's taught to them by their Rabbi in school. because they're in school. So that's what I want to do. I want to prepare a little bit for this, but I want to get into, hopefully, the ability to transform what Shavuot looks like for us, for you, for your families. Chazal tell us that the day of Shavuot was not only a day where Hashem gave us the Torah, but also a day that's called throughout Chazal as the day of our marriage to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We quote the pasuk in Shir Hashirim, where the pasuk says in Shir Hashirim, right, B'yom chatunato u'b'yom simchat libo. The day of your marriage to Hashem. It's a chasana. That's what the day is supposed to feel like. And this is what I meant to say when I was saying earlier, that you can teach your children that this is a chasana with Hashem. I remember when my daughter was very young, so, we're Sephardic, so we have on the Rosh Hashanah table not just pomegranates, but we have many, many other things. And one of the things we have on the table is a head of a lamb. Anyone here, anyone else do that? You guys have, Ashkenaz sometimes have a head of a fish. We have a couple people here. Have a head of a lamb. It's not all that pretty. I mean, it's with the eyeball and the teeth and it's a little nauseous. I'm not gonna, right? But I remember bringing it to the table. My daughter was very young at the time, and she looks at this sheep's head, and she's like, and my wife thought this is a great opportunity, to teach my daughter what this Yom Tov is. Like I mentioned, to teach your children that it's a chasana, to feel that it's a chasana. So my wife pointed at the sheep's head, and she says, honey, you see, this is... I can't remember this story without laughing. It brings a smile to my face. My wife points out, look, she points at the teeth of the sheep's head, and they're all brown. And my wife points at the teeth, and she says, Shoshi, you see, this is what happens when you don't brush your teeth. And my daughter's eyes go like this. She goes, they chop off your head? I have to be honest. If I was the person in that step, I would have said, yes, absolutely. That is what. Then she never would have missed teeth brushing ever again, ever, right? But my wife is much more honest than I am. So my wife explained it to her exactly what it was. But these are the moments that we are able to communicate to the kids in the home, at the table. And that's what they'll remember forever and ever. And that's what they'll replicate for their children and their children's children. So let's try and understand this idea of Biyom Chatunato. And I want to share with you some beautiful chidushim. They were chidushim for me. Maybe you're more well-versed than I am, but they were big chidushim for me. The Pasuk tells us that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu came to marry us, what did he do? Hashem misinai ba. Hashem came from Har Sinai to come and bring the Jewish people to him. That is the source of the minhag that the Sephardim have, that the Chatan comes towards the Kala and brings her to the Chuppah. The Tashbetz brings down that all of the minhagim that we have at a wedding are sourced in the story of Har Sinai. So as an example, the same way that the Jewish people fasted on the day of Matan Torah, we fast on the day of Matan Torah. On the day of a Chatuna. Again, that's an Ashkenaz custom. You'll see some of them fall Sephardic, some of them fall Ashkenaz. The Tikkun Zohar writes that you're supposed to stand at a chuppah. You know why? Because the Pasuk says, Vaya'amdu merachok, by Matan Torah. Moshe and Aharon with the shushbinin and the fire, the candles that you guys light when you walk down the aisle, that it commemorates the fire that was at Har Sinai. The flowers of the chuppah represented by the fact that Har Sinai was full of flowers. So each and every one of these minhagim are taken from Har Sinai. So we learn from Har Sinai how to act as a chatan and kana in our life. Remarkable. But actually it goes deeper than that, and this is really where I wanted to get to. The Shita Mekubetzet in Ketubot Zayin says that when we make the bracha, Mekadesh et Amo Yisrael, al yedei chuppah v'kiddushin, how HaKadosh Baruch Hu, He sanctifies us through chuppah v'kiddushin. You know what that means? It doesn't mean that Hashem made me and you sanctify each other through the laws of chuppah and kiddushin. It also means that Hashem sanctified us through the laws of chuppah v'kiddushin. And he says something that will blow your minds. What does it mean that Hashem took us to chuppah and kiddushin? Remember that teaching that we all learned? Kafa alehem har kegigit. Hashem took the mountain, held it over their heads, and said, if you accept, great. If not, sham tehekivuratchem, Gemara in Shabbat, pechet. You remember that? I'm sure you've heard it many times. Hashem held the mountain over their head. Says Ashita Mikubetzet. You know why? Me'en prisat chupa be'et matan Torah. That mountain was a chuppah. Not wild. But what comes out from this is something that I think is incredible. That in the same way that we learn lessons from Har Sinai to a chuppah, to kiddushin, to marriage, we also learn lessons from a chuppah, from kiddushin, from a marriage, from the love between a husband and wife. We learn them from us to Har Sinai. Now that to me was a tremendous chidush. But in truth, after thinking about it, I realized that this is nothing that is really new. And you know why? It was already established by Shir HaShirim, by Shlomo HaMelech, the wisest of all men, when he compared every intricate detail of Matan Torah to the connection between a person and the person that they love. What we're supposed to learn from our own relationship and the way we love our spouses, what we would do for them, how we feel, how we hurt when they hurt, how we rejoice when they are happy, how we try to do things to make them happy, all these things, prepare things, spontaneous, something that's not scheduled in the calendar. Oh, I just did this for you. You know why? Because I knew you would like it. Not something your husband asked you to do, is it? I just thought you would appreciate if I. Did you ever do that? Did you ever do something romantic for HaKadosh Baruch Hu? It's crazy to think this way. But this is what Shir HaShirim is communicating to us. Nafshi cholat ahavatecha. I'm love sick for you. You know, I don't know if you, hopefully this is something you've experienced in your own marriages and your own lives, where there's something that you pine for, that you love, that you miss if they're not there. And if there's distance between you, you can't wait to see them again. If you feel distant from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're supposed to learn from the power of that relationship. How to bring that back to God. What a beautiful thing. I read something from the Chinuch that absolutely blew my mind. The Chinuch writes that the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu made parents, anyone see this Chinuch? Kabed et avicha ve'et imecha. Why? Because you're Hashem, I should honor my parents. So some people translate that in the simple way, that we're supposed to learn how to respect and honor HaKadosh Baruch Hu from the way we learn to respect and honor our parents. Some people say, famous Rashi, that there are three partners, and if you honor the two partners, you're honoring the third. But the Chinuch says something magnificent. You know, we often think of our world as reality and the Torah as this thing that we have to adapt our reality to, but the Torah is reality. God looked in the Torah and created the world. That means that if for Torah's purposes, the world should look differently, then it would. Do you get that? If it was better for the Torah for us to have two noses, we would have two noses. In fact, the Gemara actually says that. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Why do we have two eyes? Why do we have two ears? How come our lips? How come our teeth? How come we have earlobes to put them in our ears? I mean, I don't know, that's a crazy thing, by the way. And I don't know, by the way, with the people who have attached ones, what do they do with that Gemara? I'm not sure. Maybe they hold like the other opinion. I'm not sure exactly how that works. But you find clearly that our reality was created by Torah. Says the Chinuch, you know why we have parents and we're not born alone in a nest like eggs? You know, how come we don't just spontaneously appear? He says, because if that was the case, how would you learn to trust that there was a being that loved you more than you loved yourself? How would you know that someone existed to take care of you, so to speak? You'd only learn that from having experienced it. So the nature of our parents is to teach us how we relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So let's try and dig into this idea, into the concept of love, of the love of a husband for a wife for a husband. Let's try and understand this concept of chatuna, of connection and closeness. And I know some people who are listening might not be married, but I'm sure you understand that that's what it is to be married, to be connected, to be selfless for someone, to want to be selfless for someone. That's the crazy part. And that's really what I want to kind of dig into together with you. We're all familiar with this idea that in the Gemara says in Megillah Lamed Aleph that we make sure that the parasha that we read before Shavuot is the parasha of Bamidbar. Right? Everybody knows that? Anyone know why? Why do we make sure that the calendar works out? We read Bahar and Bechukotai together last week, or 2 weeks ago now. Why? In order that Bamidbar should be the parasha that comes before. So we always make sure that happens. It doesn't have to come out that way. We could have read Bahar 2 weeks ago, Bechukotai this past week, and Bamidbar next Shabbat. But we don't. We make sure that Bamidbar is before. Why? Anyone know? There are many reasons. One reason is so that a person understands that Torah can't be acquired without humility. Just as the Midbar has nothing in it, a person who comes to the Torah feeling very full makes no room, makes no space for the Torah. Okay? But I want to share with you a different reason. The Pasuk says, we say it in Kabbalat Shabbat, Kol Amonai Yahil Midbar, Kol Amonai Midbar Kadesh. The voice of Hashem, Yachil Midbar, the Midbar desired the voice of Hashem. He wanted Hashem's voice to be there. Why? Every other place with people in it, with a population. So the people are the voice of Hashem. But in the desert where there's nobody, where's the voice of Hashem? So the Midbar wanted Hashem to give His Torah there. It was desperate. It was it wanted Hashem so much. So what did Hashem do? Kol Amonai Midbar Kadesh. Hashem turned that Midbar into a holy place. Our Chachamim explain, you know what this Midrash is telling us? That the Midbar's desire is what generated the Torah being given in that place. That the real secret to preparing for Shavuot is creating, these are the words that I want you to go home with, creating desire, developing a want for Torah, for mitzvot, for greatness. The Midbar wanted it so much, so Hashem gave it. Now, we all remember the story, right, about the mountains. Right? I am a man, so very... Right? So the high mountain doesn't get it, but it wants the Torah on it, right? Hara Carmel, Hara Tavor, I'm the widest. And who does Hashem give it to? Hashem gives it to Har Sinai because it's the humblest of mountains, because it's very small. I have other problems with this Uncle Moshe song. My wife and I have many, many kashas on this song, but we're going to leave that for another day. I'm a strange person. I do have questions on nursery rhymes. Anyone know? Just me? Yeah? Humpty Dumpty, sat in a wall, had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again? No? Like, who thought that the horses were going to do a good job of that? Like, I mean, you have to have really bad coverage to be like, I think I'm going to go with the horse surgeon. It's weird. There's lots of things like this. You know, ring around the rosy, pop the rosy, ashes. Right, we all fall down. About the Black Plague. Sounds like a good thing to sing to your children when they go to sleep, right? Right? It's amazing. I don't understand. I think people are absolutely crazy that this has kind of made its way into our conscience, into right. Even some of the Frum songs also. Like I don't understand. No, me? Yeah. Okay. I guess it's just me. The death of every firstborn son. Hey, tra-la-la-wee. Death of every firstborn son. Hey! I don't know. I'm just weird, I guess. Okay. I've accepted that long ago. So, let's try and understand what we're doing with this. All right? Let's try and understand. Har Carmel and Har Tavor wanted the Torah, but Hashem gave it on Har Sinai. I want to quote to you an amazing Rashi. Rashi says that Har Carmel and Har Tavor didn't get chosen. But later on Har Tavor, there was an incredible story that took place. Anyone know what happened on Har Tavor? The capitulation of Sisera, right, to Shirat Devorah and Barak and her husband. That's salvation from Hashem. Where did it happen? On Har Tavor. And on Har Tavor, they said, Anochi la Hashem, Anochi Ashira. Hara Carmel, what happened in Hara Carmel? Eliyahu Hanavi, Hara Carmel. No, Rabbi, no, nobody knows that tape? You do that tape? I still have nightmares from that tape. Bow, bow, bow. Okay, whatever. It's my problem with my therapist. It's fine. Hara Carmel has Eliyahu Hanavi, and what do they say? What do the Jews say at that moment when they recognize Hashem? Hashem hu ha'elokim. Say Chazal something that is so gorgeous, has to melt your heart. What did Har Sinai get? Anochi Hashem Elokecha. But Tavor wanted it too. And Carmel wanted it too. So what did Tavor get? Anochi Hashem. Anochi Ashira. The same format. Anochi and Shem Hashem. What did Carmel get? Hashem hu Elokim. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. There's no such thing as a person who wants something with all of their being that does not receive it. It is a reality in this world. You might not get it now. You might not get it in the way that you think. But if you want it enough, if you push yourself, you drive that desire, you create it in your heart, in your soul, it will come. Sometimes it skips a generation. I've had to tell many very, very distraught parents, sometimes it skips a generation. But if you died for your son to be a Talmid Chacham, and you're upset at God, why'd he go off the derech? I give them what I call Har Tavor therapy, Har Carmel therapy. Come back to me when your grandson is a Gadol Hador, because that's what will take place. And I have a proof. The Chidah writes something unbelievable. I don't know if you know this. Shmuel was a great Navi, and he's compared to Moshe and Aaron. Moshe and Aaron, right? If you're a Kalbach fan, probably done better by other people. Moshe and Aaron were amazing, as his priests. Why is Moshe called a priest? Because of the days of Miluim, he served in the Beit HaMikdash, in the Mishkan. Moshe and Aharon bekohanav. And Shmuel, what was Shmuel? Bekorei Shemo. He was from the ones that called out in the name of Hashem. Says the Chidah something unbelievable. Shmuel was going to be as great as Moshe. And you know who knew that? Everyone. 40 years before Shmuel was born, a bat kol came out and said there's going to be a boy, a child called Shmuel, who will be a tremendous Navi, a Navi like Moshe. So what did every good Jewish mommy do? She named her son Shmuel. She had a daughter. She also named him Shmuel. Shmuel, I don't know, whatever. So you had a generation of people named Shmuel. And Sei Chazal, the Radak brings it, that they go to every Shmuel that they met and they'd be like, oh, is this him? Is this him? And then the guy's like, you know, he's playing too much basketball. They're like, no, it's not him. And another Shmuel, another Shmuel, another Shmuel, another. Until finally, Shmuel is born to Chana, Elanar, Hazeh, Palalti. And he goes to be Misharet Eliya Kohen. And finally, God calls out to him, Shmuel, Shmuel. Right? And we all know the story. And then that Shmuel says the Chidah something that will blow your mind. He says, the Pasuk says that at the time there was something called the Chevel HaNevi'im, the belt of prophets. Who is this belt of prophets? Who is this group of prophets? It was all the Shmuels that were not that Shmuel Hanavi. They were granted Nivuah. They all became Nevi'im. Because each mother wanted their kid to become Shmuel Hanavi. So they all became Shmuel Hanavi. Maybe not Shmuel Hayediah Hanavi, but still Shmuel Hanavi nonetheless. What we don't understand is that our desire, what we want, creates a mitziut. Now, I don't know if you guys are into sports at all. I'm not sure if that's allowed. My Rosh Hashiva, when I was in Eretz Yisrael, my Rosh Hashiva insisted that sports was Avodah Zarah. So the worst thing I did when I was in Eretz Yisrael learning in Yeshiva was that I snuck out and played sports. I'm so sorry. I'm still doing tshuva. I hope one day Hashem will forgive me. That was not what I learned from my Rosh Hashivas here in America. not what I learned from my Rosh Koilel, not what I learned from my Rebbe, not what I learned from my parents. So it was something that wasn't mitkabel al adat. But I want to share with you something from sports. Almost every time a team loses, they have someone come and interview the people that lost. And they ask them, why do you think your team lost? Which is probably the dumbest question to ask a person who's just lost a championship. You know, you just lost the Super Bowl. How do you feel? Bad. And that's, by the way, that's actually the intellectual equivalent of those conversations. You know, what do you think went wrong? I think they scored more points than we did. What do you guys do next time? I think we need to score more points than they did. That is actually how the game works, yes, right? And thank you for wasting everyone's time. But there's something that they then say. It's almost unanimous. It's in every sport. You know what they say? Why did they win? Have you ever heard this? I don't know if you follow sports. I guess they wanted it more than we did. I heard that many times, and it never really kind of landed until I learned what we're learning today. That means that the coach put them through every single possible sporting, you know, they do this, that, I don't really know what that does, but they do that when they're preparing for football. I played football many, many years. I never saw a play that required someone to do like that with sticks on the ground. I think that was just made up by a coach that was trying to prank his team, right? Get the sticks out, make them jump, right? Not the preparation, not the weight room, not the practice, not the plays, not the book. They wanted it more than we did. And if they wanted it more than we did, that's enough. Because if they want it, it doesn't matter if they're less, if they're not as smart, if they're not. And you know what? We all know this to be true. Who was chosen to take over Moshe Rabbeinu? Yehoshua. Why was Yehoshua chosen? Because he was na'ar lo yamish mitoch ha'oel. He was a young boy, a young man that never left the Beit Midrash, never left the oil. In fact, you want to hear something wild about Yehoshua. Remember when Moshe comes down with the luchot by the Egel, and he comes down, and who does he meet? Yehoshua. Who? Only Yehoshua. How come only Yehoshua? Where's like the welcoming party? Like when Yitro comes to the desert, who goes out to meet Yitro? Everybody. Now Moshe's coming down from Har Sinai. Where is everybody? Where's the welcoming committee? Only Yehoshua. You know why? Chazal tell us something incredible. Yehoshua went there 40 days before. And what did he decide to do? He knew that when Moshe came down from the mountain, there was a walk from the mountain, 5 minutes, to get to the camp. And he said, you know what, those 5 minutes, my Rebbe will be alone. I could ask him a question. And if you think that that's crazy, I want to quote to you the words of Rebbetzin Shkop about Rebbe Chanan Wasserman, Hashem Yinkom Damo. One of the greatest leaders of pre-war Europe. Someone who was here in America and could have stayed safe. He was here when everything broke out. And he told everyone, I'm going back. And they said, why? It's a firestorm there. It's gas chambers, it's bullets, it's Nazis. He said, my boys are there. And he went back to his yeshiva. And he taught his students. He said, they're coming. We're a korban for the people. That's what we are. Let's not ruin the korban. And he faced the Nazis. He opened his jacket. That's Rebbe Chanan Wasserman. In the Hakdamah to his Sefer, he quotes, not he, the person who put the Sefer together, quotes Rebbetzin Shkop, his Rosh Yeshiva's Rebbetzin. She said the most annoying of all the Talmidim was Rebbe Chanan Wasserman. I'm never sure how like the family feels when they read these. You know, no, anyone? Okay, just me again. Fine. The most annoying of all the Talmidim. You know why? Because everyone else walked the Rosh Yeshiva Reb Shimon Shkop to the door, but Elchanan, he came to the door, and the Rosh Yeshiva opened the door, and he followed the Rosh Yeshiva into the door, still asking. And the Rosh Yeshiva walked through the living room, still asking. Through the dining room, still asking. Into his bedroom. Now, yes, there's an issue of boundaries there. I think we can agree. But what Rav Elchanan did is what made Rav Elchanan. What Yehoshua did for the 5 minutes with his Rebbe, that desire, that want, the tishukah for growth, wanting nafshi cholat avatecha. That desire is what created Yoshua. Yoshua was not the smartest, and he was not the person that was the greatest Navi. We don't find anything remarkable about Yoshua. In fact, the Mefarshim say that when Yoshua was chosen to go and be one of the Miraglim, that proves that he was just like them, and they were all Sareh Chamishim. Now, you remember that Sarim? Remember that bit? Yeah? Sareh Asara, Sareh Chamishim, Sareh Meot, Sareh Alafim. There's people who were in charge of 10, people who were in charge of 50, people who were in charge of 100, people who were in charge of thousands, then the Nisaim. Yoshua was second to bottom. But he was not Eloi Amish mitoch ha'oel. He bit on and he didn't let go. And that was enough. And that outstripped everything else. You know why they won? Not because they're better, not because they're faster, not because they're more prepared, not because they spent more time in the gym, but because they wanted it more. So how do we create desire in ourselves, in our children? How do we make our kids not think, I want to grow up to be a younger man, I want to grow up to be a Talmid Chacham, but to think, I want to grow up to be the Gadol Hador? How do we make that? How do we foster that in our children? How do we foster that in ourselves? To want excellence, something that's so far out of what we would have even thought was possible for ourselves. How do you do that? What's the process to do that? Because if the want is there, then it will come in some way, shape, or form. So how do we create that? That's where we come towards Shavuot. And I want to go through a few different possibilities as to how we create that desire. There's a famous Gemara. The Gemara quotes a machloket between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua, I believe. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Pesachim Samach Chet. En lo la'adam b'yom tov ela o ochel v'shoteh o yoshev v'shoneh. A person on Yom Tov, he should either learn the whole time and not eat any food, or eat and drink the whole time and not learn anything. So either you're going to be holy, the holiday is going to be holy, not H-O-L-Y, W-H-O-L-Y, right? Entirely for you or entirely for Hashem. It's no 50-50. It's no half measures. It's got to be all in. So, right, that's what it's got to be. Rabbi Yoshua Omer, chalkeu, half. Chetziav la'achila v'shtiyah, half of the holiday is eating, drinking, preparing things from the menus and every cookbook that comes out every 3.5 minutes. I don't know how you keep up. There's more cookbooks than Mefarshim, by the way. It is absolutely insane. Also, I have realized after buying many cookbooks that so much of this cookbook is actually in the other cookbook, just called something else with a different photo. No? And then my wife basically, probably like you, then decides halfway through, yeah, it probably doesn't need that much margarine, it's not so healthy. So I'm like, you make up the recipes? Why am I buying any cookbooks? Okay. Says the Gemara. So machloket, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yoshua. Rabbi Eliezer says all or all. Rabbi Yoshua says half and half. Rabbi Eliezer says, hold on, I just want to get this on the record. When it comes, hakol modim be'atzeret, when it comes, atzeret is one of the names of Shavuot, everyone agrees when it comes to Shavuot, ba'ina nami lachem. You have to celebrate. Holy cheese, W-H-O-L-Y last time, H-O-L-Y this time, holy cheesecakes. Actually, holy cheesecakes. Ba'ina nami lachem. You have to enjoy it. It's got to be amazing. And I'll never forget my Rebbe saying this to us. You know why? Because part of Shavuot is learning that you need to celebrate this thing. And I'll give you the most beautiful example that I know. The most beautiful example that I know is one that comes from Shlomo HaMelech's pasuk. Shema beni musar avicha v'al titosh Torah imecha. Listen to the musar, to the castigation, to the direction of your father. V'al titosh Torah imecha. Don't give up your mother's Torah. Anyone know the end of that pasuk? No, right? It's only the ones that make into songs. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. It's only the song ones. I actually feel that Yaakov Shweki and Mordechai Shapiro, they should meet like once a year with Rosh Yeshivas and be like, so which pasuk do we want Klal Yisrael to know? Like I feel like we have Eishes Chayil down because there are 900 versions of Eishes Chayil and Moide Ani. Right? It's strange. I have my own ideas. I feel like other psukim also deserve to be known. So I started singing just because I'm weird. On a Pesach program once, I started singing a very different song, and I got lots of people to sing with me. And no one, that my experiment proved to work perfectly, no one paid any attention to the words that we were singing. It's also my own tune, so it's a complete original. If you use it, I'll sue you. There's a pasuk, it talks about how when Jewish soldiers went to war, they would need to take a shovel with them, because if they had to go to the bathroom, they would have to cover over when they went to the bathroom. It shouldn't be that they made that mess in the camp. Right? You familiar with that? By the way, in the Israeli army, they used to give them a little shovel as well, because the pasuk says that your machanecha should be vaya machanecha kadosh. This should be tznius, it should be the right way, etc., etc. So you have to cover over when you go to the bathroom. So me and my brother start singing at one of the tables and got lots of people to join us. That means cover your poop, okay? With harmonies we had. No idea. My friends, I'm saying this as a joke, but there's a tremendous musar here. The feeling, the energy, the knowledge, the connection that we have to Torah, it comes when we sing songs. When there's something that gets us into something. If it's a beautiful song, if it's a happy song, if it's a jumpy song. You didn't know that pasuk. You're looking at me like I'm weird, which I am, but not for this reason, right? You didn't know it because no one wrote a song about it. And that's why the pasuk says that the Torah is called a song. Ve'ata kitvu lachem et hashira azot v'lamdat b'nei Yisrael. Thank you, Mordechai ben David. That's why I know that pasuk. It's called a song because what you sing, what you enjoy, you remember. You bring into your life. If Shavous was terrible, you know what would happen? If we didn't enjoy it, then we would not be mikabel Torah, because to accept Torah is to love it, is to want it, is to desire it. And if you have a fantastic meal, you know what happens? You have fond memories, and your brain, your Yetzer Hara, your brain, your heart, everything says, yay, Shavous. I always thought the biggest problem the Jewish people had is that the once a year Jews came to shul on Yom Kippur. If I was in charge of the world, which I'm not, my wife keeps reminding me, but if I was in charge of the world, I would make the one day a year Jews come on Purim. How many people would be more Jewish if the once a year guys came on Purim? They would be like, this is amazing. The problem is they come on Yom Kippur, and what do they think to themselves? It's the last place in the world I want to be. I gave an explanatory service once in England, and this alta, you know when someone comes and it's like they stepped out of the pages of a storybook? Do you know what I mean? No? Wow, okay. You ever see like children running with like their payas hanging like long, and you think, oh my God, I know you. I remember you from those stickers. No, there's no, like you're not a child, you're one of the menchies. No? You know what I mean? When they look like, so this looked like that grandmother from the books. She came and she was wearing like she's not religious at all, very flowery dress, like a one-piecer, like you know that type, with a huge, like it takes up 2 rows hat, right? Made out of straw, okay? And then tied with like a white ribbon, like too big, with like actual flowers tucked into it. I was like, bless. I don't have any grandmas left. Can I have you? Like that was the feeling. Okay. So anyway, I gave this explanatory service where people who don't read Hebrew come miserable to shul every year, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. They sit through the service, they don't understand the word, and they go home, and it means nothing. So anyway, I did an explanatory service, and I took them through what davening means, each bit. We davened much less, but they actually knew what it was talking about. They understood what the psukim were saying. They understood what we were praying for, what we meant. Anyway, she comes up to me after the explanatory service, first day Rosh Hashanah, and she says, "Oh, thank you so much. It was amazing. I thoroughly enjoyed myself." I was like, "Oh, Grams, let's go." You know what she said? She says, "I'm so sorry, but I don't think I'm going to come tomorrow." I was like, "What? You're out, the other Grams is in." Like, I was like, "What? Why?" She goes, "It just didn't feel right to enjoy services on Yom Kippur. Like, I feel like you're supposed to feel like miserable and like hate it." That's what she thought Yom Kippur was, and that's what she thought Yiddishkeit was. So says the Alshich, oh my gosh. The end of that pasuk, that is not part of the many songs that were written, or tunes, is the pasuk continues on Shlomo HaMelech, and it says, Leviatchen leroshecha. It's a garland like Grams had, flowers in the hair. Va'anakim legargerotecha, and a necklace for your neck. The Alshich brings the most beautiful mashal. Oh! Do you get excited when you learn? Do you? It's what we're talking about today. That's it. It's all about that. You can learn everything, and if you're miserable, nothing is going to land. You'll do all the mitzvot, but you'll have no connection to Hashem whatsoever. Zero. You'll daven in the right time. You'll learn non-stop. You'll give tzedakah. You'll keep kosher. You'll do taras hamishpacha, and you'll do all the mitzvot exactly. You'll build a makkeh on your roof. How many of you have done that? No one. It's not fair. Some mitzvot are so popular. Okay. And you'll have no shaykhs to Hashem. And this is supposed to be Yom Chatunato. Let's learn something from an actual wedding. What if you did every single thing for your husband that you're supposed to do? What if you gave your wife everything you're supposed to give her, except for love? Except she can tell when she comes home you're not excited. But you did everything right. You're playing a game. That's not marriage. That's not connection. That's not Yom Chatunato. You're missing the boat. So therefore, even Rabbi Eliezer, who says that you could fulfill the mitzvah by being 100% learning the whole Yom Tov, that's what he felt. He said when it comes to Shavuot, which is the day of the receiving of the Torah, you'd think of all days, that would be the one that you could fulfill your mitzvah just by learning. And says Rabbi Eliezer, even I admit that you need to stop learning to go have a steak for Yom Tov, to have a nice cup of wine. My Rebbe, Rav Berkowitz Shlita, used to yell at us. You're running from your Seudah, you're finishing your Seudat Shavuot as soon as possible. Running out the door. Why? So you can learn all night. Anyone here experience that at home? Kids, the boys, the husband running out to go learn? I mean, that's what we always did. I always did. Everyone in the kollel always did. That's what we thought. Learn the night of Shavuos. You know the schoolis. You know what the Shloh HaKadosh says about the Dvarim Smechim, Knesset Sinai. All of your Chidushei Torah are going to be decided. Blah, 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 blah. Diarrhea of the mouth. Just spewing garbage. And we didn't wait to hear what he said. And he said, what are you talking about? V'samachta b'chagecha is a doiraisa. There's no mitzvah, no halacha, not in the Shulchan Aruch, not in the Mishnah, not in the Gemara, that you have to stay up all night Shavuos. It's a minhag that Klal Yisrael adapted, a holy minhag, one that we have to do, that we should do. We should be excited about it. But don't forget v'samachta b'chagecha, and says the Gemara, says the halacha, what is simcha on Yom Tov? Ein simcha ela b'basar v'yayin. If you're not celebrating, if you don't love it, you don't want it. Says the Alshich, imagine there was a prisoner. And they came to the prisoner and they said, we have to put you in chains. That's what they used to do with prisoners. Even in the actual prison, they would put a chain around their arm, legs, and hang it to the wall. Imagine they told the prisoner, here is a box of chains. Why don't you choose for yourself which chains you want? What would the prisoner choose? He would look through the box, right? What would he find? the lightest, the longest, right? The chain that weighs the least. That's the one that he wants. Because it's sitting, it's like weighing on him the whole time. Says the Al-Sheikh, and this is a punch in the face. Imagine your mother-in-law took you to the jeweler and said, choose for yourself a pearl necklace, a gold necklace, a diamond. Which do you choose? Not the lightest, the heaviest. I'm assuming she could afford that, and that doesn't make you a pig, but yes, you choose the heaviest. He says, why is it when you choose one chain, you choose the lightest, and when you choose one chain, you choose the heaviest? Says the Al-Sheikh, and I want to just read you these words because they are so beautiful. Chok tevahu. It is a rule of nature. Shetachshitim enam kivedim. That jewelry is not heavy. I never have yet to meet the person and say, you know what, the diamond is too big. It's in the hand. So hard. You have the opposite experience. Ask your children to get the groceries from the car. What happens? They're like my arms are killing me. Look, and they're showing you how the strings of the bag do that to their fingers, right? You ever see, yeah? Yeah, you guys see that? Look at my hands. I can't. Give your kid a credit card. Tell them to go to the mall and get whatever they want. They're walking with bags up and down the mall. They may have missed the store on the other side. They have to go to this one first and that one later. What happened? It's a lot shorter to walk from the car to your house. You know what the difference is? Those bags are for the pantry. These bags are for me. Tachshitim enam kevedim. So how do you create desire? You figure out how to feel like these bags are for you. These are not chains. These are jewelry. That's what we need to start doing. To recognize what the Torah actually gives a person. Once I remember hearing a line from Rav Chaim Soloveitchik. He used to say that the pasuk says all the time, it tells us a mitzvah to do, and then Chazal come along, or sometimes the pasuk itself, and it gives you what's called ta'ameh hamikra. What's ta'ameh hamikra? Sorry? A taste of the mitzvah. So she already heard Rav Chaim. Normally, people translate ta'ameh hamitzvot, ta'ameh hamikra as the reason for the pasuk, the reason for the mitzvah. Says Rav Chaim, it doesn't mean that the reason. You know what the proof is? What happens if the reason is not nogea? Are we putter from doing the mitzvah? No. So it can't be the reason. In fact, what is it instead? It's the thing, the reason is the thing that gives the mitzvah its taste. Anyone here a wine connoisseur? I'm not. I like whiskey. But I learned that in order to taste the whiskey, you got to swirl it around your mouth. I used to think that you put ice in whiskey until I learned that that is one of the gimel averot chamurot. Right? You know, I had someone yell at me because I put ice in the whiskey. And he said, if I see some people over there shaking their heads, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. By the way, you're at your workplace. For me, this is not a problem. But do you want people to know? No, I'm joking. Yeah. You know why you don't put ice in whiskey? Because when ice is cold, like a ice pop, it freezes the taste buds. And if the reason why you spend all that money is to get a whiskey that actually has a good taste, then by freezing your taste buds, you're not actually tasting the thing that you paid so much money to actually taste. So why would you do that? My friends, the Torah is like that. We're not figuring out how to taste, how to savor the mitzvah. We're so busy getting points and ticking boxes that we're not delving into becoming connoisseurs, people who enjoy the mitzvah, tasting it, swirling it around the glass to see the legs on the glass. That's what they say in the wine tasting world. Aerating, letting the wine breathe. Have you ever let a mitzvah breathe? Let it stick around the house just a little bit more. Get there early to spend more time with it. It's crazy. And I want to share with you what it looks like when that's what Torah feels like to you. When you're desperate, you love it. I married a remarkable woman, Baruch Hashem. I did not know when I married her how remarkable she was, but I think that that's always how it is. You don't realize the depth, the greatness of the person until you spend real time with them, until you see them in many, many different circumstances. And one of the reasons I think that she was zocha to become that type of a person that would give up everything so that we could go to England where we did not have any family and we did not have any friends, because my Rebbe said that that was the right place to go. Now for me, I'm learning with my Rebbe, I have a kesher with my Rebbe, I'm there every day, we walk him home. I didn't go in his bedroom, but we walk him home. I had real time with Rav Berkowitz Shlita. My wife is not. So for me to say, yes, Rebbe, absolutely. England, that sounds right. For my wife, Lech Tech Acharai B'Midbar. What creates that? What creates Mesirut Nefesh? You know what creates Mesirut Nefesh in children and grandchildren? So I always noticed that my wife's grandfather, whose name is Yisrael Rausman, that his hand was wonky. It was kind of like one of his hands was straight, the other hand kind of, like, you can't see the back. Just a little off like that. And I never said anything because it just seems like a weird thing to say. So your hand, yeah, it's not straight. You should get that looked at. I think I have a ruler we can measure. But what would I say? So I didn't say anything. So I also didn't ask, because what are you going to ask? It's just a weird thing, so it never came up. After he passed away, so my wife got a hold of a DVD of him and his wife sitting down being interviewed about their time during the Holocaust. And he's speaking. He was a little boy, and he went from camp to camp. He was on a death march. Just crazy to hear that a little boy like this was able to survive those horrors. But then he shares the following story. He said, one day, we realized in the barracks, that it was tomorrow was going to be a Yom Kippur. Yeah, he's from the border of Czechoslovakia and Hungary. The border kept changing. So one year it was one country, another year it was another country. But right near, roughly around Munkac or Zidichoyev. We realized it was going to be Yom Kippur, and I told my brother, whatever, I'm not working on Yom Kippur. So his brother, they were kids. His brother said to him, Sruel, if you don't work on Yom Kippur, they're going to kill you. You're only valuable to them if you could work for them. You don't have to. You're potter. It's pikuach nefesh. He said, I'm not working on Yom Kippur. I'm going to figure it out. He was working at the time in the coal mines. So he went down into the coal mines, and they would take up these pieces of coal, and they would have a train that would come down, down the track, and they'd fill it up with coal, and then it would, the next train would come and push the train up, and that's how they would have that, this kind of system of trains coming, filling them up with coal and going up. And that's where he hatched his plan. He walked over to the train tracks, and he turned his head away, and he bit his finger, and when the train came down the track, he held his hand in between the two trains. And it completely crushed his wrist and his hand. And he came up to the Nazi, he says, bitte kannst du mir helfen? And he says, can you help me? I seem to have broken my hand. I need to go get it tied up in the infirmary. I'm sure I'll be back tomorrow. The Nazi obviously thought that he would still be able to work tomorrow, and he sent him to the infirmary. Find me in a sefer someone that says that you have to break your own hand on Yom Kippur to get out of work when it's pikuach nefesh. You won't find it. Because to be married to someone, to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you know what it means? It means to do things even that he never told you to do. Because how would this make him feel? because I want to show him that Yom Kippur means something to me. And there's so little I could do here. The only thing I could do is not do, but let me at least do that. And I'll never forget that it broke my heart that I'm watching this DVD after he's passed away. And I started crying. My wife said, "What are you crying about?" She said, "I never heard the story." She says, "You never heard? The whole family knows it." I said, "I never heard it. I'm not from your family." And I never asked him. So I never got the chance to talk to him about this Mesiras Nefesh. But that Mesiras Nefesh creates in the children and the grandchildren a desire to mimic what they saw and what they respected in their parents. You could go Shavous and run out of your meal and make sure you learn as many Sfarim as you want the whole night. That's what they could do. But they're missing the point. Did you sing? Did you smile? How happy were you? Did you dissect what makes you feel lucky? Ask this question at your table. What makes you happy that you're Jewish? What's your favorite mitzvah? Ask your kids the question. Ask it at the table. Why is it your favorite mitzvah? I was sitting with a couple in my house on Shavuot. And I asked everyone, what's your favorite mitzvah? Everyone's choosing a mitzvah. I get to one couple, a Baal Teshuvah. And the wife says her favorite mitzvah is tefillin. I was like, here we go. I want to learn Gemara. Shut up. It wasn't one of those. It wasn't. This girl, she started coming to a women's class. And after about 1 month of coming to this women's class where no one was religious, no one was from, she came to the class, and after the class she said to me, "You know, Rabbi, all this stuff you're teaching, about Judaism, Judaism is really nice. It's like really beautiful." My alarm bells are going off because unfortunately no Jews ever say that, right? You never find a Jewish person after 1 shir, 2 shirim, they're like, "Oh, Judaism is amazing." That's not how Balei Tshuva become Balei Tshuva usually, So my alarm was, and I had been speaking to her. I'm Syrian. She was also Syrian. We had conversations about lachmajin and kibbeh and machshi. Those are all words, by the way. Those are words for food that you cannot find in between 2 carpools. None of the cookbooks that you know will have these recipes, okay? Someone needs to do a Sephardic version of these things. I don't know. Is there a Sephardic version of between? Aromas of Aleppo. Yeah, that's a beautiful one, by the way. A gorgeous. Pupa Dwek, Shlita. But the yeshivish mother's version that you have to make between 2 carpools. I think also we could convert all the Ashkenazim if there was like a fast way to make Sephardi food. Because it has something that Ashkenaz food doesn't have. Spices. Either way, sorry, probably wrong place to say that, but my mother's Ashkenaz, just to let you know, fair warning. The amazing thing is that this girl said to me, and we've been talking about the food, and we've been talking about music, and you know what she said? I didn't realize the whole time. She was also from Syria, just from the other side of the tracks. She was a Muslim girl from Syria who was coming to the class every week. I didn't know. Her friends who were not from thought, "Oh, this rabbi's giving a class. Why can't I invite a guy?" They did. She came to the class. And now, yay, Judaism's nice. She says, "Do you do this with the boys?" I was like, "Yeah, we have a boys' class every Monday." Actually, many of the boys, the husbands and the boyfriends of these people are in that class. She says, "Oh, amazing. I'm going to get my boyfriend to come." I was like, "Come on. I have Muhammad coming to the class now. It's like dangerous to teach Torah." She says, "I'm going to tell Shemi. I'm sure he'd love it." Of course, the Muslim girl from Syria is dating the boy called Shemi. Well, she convinces her Jewish boyfriend, who could not care less that she was an Arab, to go to the class. And then a few weeks after that, maybe 3-4 weeks after that, she says, I said to you that Judaism was beautiful, and I realized it's not beautiful. I was like, yes. This is the Rus moment, right? And she says, it's not beautiful, it's true. and I've decided that I want to convert. Can you direct me and sponsor me to the Beit Din? I was like, well, it's not really a thing. You don't have to convert. You could still get Gan Eden. What's Gan Eden? I don't know. Ayin Le'rasa, right? I'm doing whatever I can in that moment. Telling her, it's hard. You could take 2 years. It could take. I know someone that took 10 years to finally get proper, conversion, Orthodox from. She looks at me and she says, I don't care if it takes 2 years. I don't care if it takes 10 years. My husband and his family couldn't care less if I'm Jewish or not. They'd be happy if we got married as is. So I'm not doing it for him. I'm not doing it for them. I'm not doing it so I could get married. So I could just get married as is. And then if it takes 2 years or 10 years, if it takes me till the day that I die, at least I would have lived one day as a Jew. That's what this girl felt. Her husband became completely frum. They went through a frum gerus. I stood under their chuppah with her Syrian Arab parents. And I sang them Inta Omri, which is the most famous Arabic song. And that's when they finally relaxed under the daughters, by their daughter's chuppah. Okay, okay, fine, he knows Inta Omri, we're safe. She said her favorite mitzvah was tefillin. And I said, why? That's not one of the, chala, hadlakat haner, nida, one of the 3 mitzvot of a woman, or Shabbat. I would imagine. And listen what she said. She said, because you taught us that there are 3 mitzvot that are called an ot, that are called a sign of the connection of the relationship between a person and Hashem. One of them is Brit Milah. One of them is Shabbat. And one of them is Tefillin. Shabbat is an ot. You only get to keep it if you're Jewish. Brit Milah, you only get to have it if you're Jewish and if you're a boy. She said, but Tefillin represents the idea of coming close to Hashem because you're tying yourself to Him, because you're binding yourself to Him. You're pulling yourself close to Him. And I don't put on tefillin. But she says, my favorite mitzvah is the idea that you could tie yourself to Hashem. We were not Yotzeh v'samachta b'chagecha that year because everyone at the table was crying. But like the Gemara says, kashe gerim l'Yisrael kesapachat. Gerim are very hard for the Jews because they really show us up, don't they? How far they come, how strong they love Hashem, how much they give up. If we gave up a fraction of what they'd given up, right? From where we started, where would we be? But that's what it means to be able to kind of push. And I want to end, if I can, just with this one thing, just with this one idea. An idea from Rav Schneur, and I felt it was appropriate to end with an idea from Rav Schneur and Rav Aaron. Rav Schneur brings down the pasuk by Shlomo HaMelech. Hashem comes to Shlomo in a dream right after he becomes the king. And he says, what can I give you? And Shlomo HaMelech says, you know what I want? I want lev shomeya. I want a heart that listens. He asked for the wisdom that he would become eventually the wisest man that ever lived. And Hashem gave it to him. By the way, there's a beautiful lesson even in just that the definition of wisdom is listening with your heart. Even just that. It's just worth learning only that if you came today. Lev shomea, the true wisdom is to be able to listen with your heart, not with your ears, not to see with your eyes, but to hear someone, not what they say, but what they mean, what they're feeling. Lev shomea. What does Hashem say in this dream? Hashem says to Shlomo, because you chose wisdom, and you did not ask me for wealth, and you did not ask me to live long life, arichut yamim, and you did not ask me to kill that your enemies should die, I'm going to give you all of it. That's in the Pesukim. Yeah, you guys familiar with this? Yes? Okay. Rav Schneur asked 2 questions. The first question is, who has nevuah from Hashem in a dream at night? Who? Bilam has a dream at night, right? The Rishaim have a dream at night with Hashem. A regular Navi, how do they experience Hashem? Not in the nighttime in their dream. It's in a semi-conscious state during the day, right? Now, they're not awake, but they're not in the middle of the night sleeping like a dream like you and I have. I had a dream last night, too, about flowers. I don't know why, but maybe because of Shavous, and I'm terrified, right? That I always fill the house with flowers, so maybe that's what's coming, right? Not like that. Asks Rav Shner, Shlomo HaMelech was a Navi. Why didn't God appear to him like a Navi? Why in the middle of the night? Question number 2, he says. Why does he appear to Shlomo and ask him this question? He didn't come to me or to you. Did he ever come and ask you, what do you want? That you could answer something and get like this gift of all the knowledge, all the wisdom? Rav Shner answers 2 answers to these 2 questions. And listen carefully because they are amazing. Rav Shner says, to answer the first question, you know why he appeared to Shlomo at night? Because if he'd appeared to Shlomo while he was awake, in the middle of the day, if God himself comes to you and he says, what do you want? What are you going to say to Hashem? I want the Range Rover Jeep. Oh my God, I've been waiting. Right? You're not going to say that. You're not going to ask for anything stupid or petty because you're awake and aware and that you're recognizing that Hashem is asking you something. You're going to say something that you think he wants to hear. Hashem wanted to see, what would Shlomo say if you woke him up in the middle of the night and said, what do you want? What does the subconscious Shlomo want? And when Shlomo in his dream, when he could not control his thoughts, when he could not say what Hashem wanted to hear, which is what most people wind up saying when you talk to them about Yiddishkeit. How do you feel about this? Well, how do you feel? That's what they're thinking. What do you want to hear me say to you? Kids, when they go nebuch to yeshivas for interviews, they just want to know, what does the Rosh Yeshiva want me to say? Shlomo couldn't control it, and Hashem wanted to see what would he say when he couldn't control what he said. What did he want in his deepest heart of hearts? And Shlomo says, I want to live Shomea. Hashem says, to that, I give it to you. The second question says, Rav Shner, why does he come to Shlomo? And the answer is, he doesn't. He comes to Shlomo and to David and to Moshe and to Aaron and to Sprinzel and to Razel and to Charna and to Chana. He comes to me and he comes to you every single night. And he listens and he watches. What are your dreams? What do you want? And then when you wake up in the morning, I think that's why we say after a big decision's coming our way, what do we say? Sleep on it. If you sleep on it, Hashem hears. And when you wake up in the morning, Modeh ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, shehechezarta bi nishmati, bechemla rabba emunatecha. That's what we mean. That Hashem gave us back a neshama that matches what we want with the vessels, with the tools, with the capabilities to fulfill our dreams. When he sees what you really want. By the way, letav or lamutav. If a person wants to go the wrong way, molichim oto. Person wants to go the right way, molichim oto. Hashem enables you to do what you want. So when we try and receive Torah this year, that's the avodah. What do I want? What do I want to be mekabel? We know that on Purim, the Jewish people re-accepted the Torah. Everyone knows that, right? They accepted what they accepted already. Says the Maharal, you know how we know they accepted what they accepted already? Because they took on an extra mitzvah. They added the mitzvah of Megillah. I don't know if you want it or if you don't want it, but if you're adding extra mitzvahs, doesn't that mean that you love the ones you have? What Kabbalah will we take on before Shavuot to show Hashem that we are obsessed, that we're in love with His Torah and with Him? And in the same way, a person is not the half of themselves without their partner. The Sfarim say we were half of ourselves without the Torah. We became whole, just like it says, Chatan and Kala. Without your wife, you're not Adam. So too, does it say without the Torah, you're not Adam. Atem kiruyim Adam. Ve'en ovdei kochavim mezalot kiruyim Adam. We become a whole person. But how much of a person we become depends on how much we want and how much desire we've created and how much excitement we generate. And what can you do and what can you buy? The things that you buy for Yom Tov to increase excitement, think of them that way, as opposed to what will the neighbors think about the fact that they wore the same outfit as last Yom Tov. If you think that way, it's beautiful, it's amazing, because you're celebrating this day. Hashem should bless us always to be able to do the things that it takes to come closer to Him. He should draw our hearts to Him, and Be'ezrat Hashem will be bezocher. When we are close to Hashem, when you're in Hashem's mechitza, all of the other things that you want, they fall into place by themselves. May we be zocher to all the brachot, haktuvot, b'sefer hazeh. Chag Sameach. Thank you for having me. I appreciate that you're listening and no one fell asleep or walked out. Mazal tov, Chag Sameach.